Hey there friends, how's it going? Richard here. Well, Tesla has finally come around to releasing its full self-driving package as a subscription. How did I come to find out? Well, recently a few friends and I went to a casino in Connecticut. We parked the car in the garage near an outlet, so I left my Model 3 charging using the travel charger. While we were out and about in the casino, I decided to check out the app to make sure there were no issues with charging. That's when I saw a little notification in my Tesla inbox. Waiting for me was a message saying full self-driving capability is now available as a monthly subscription. This was a welcome offering because I had seen articles suggesting that the FSD as a subscription was in the works. Prior to this, to get access to the FSD package, you had to pay for the upgrade in full for a cool $10,000, which for me wasn't going to happen. Really amazing about this is that it's $200 a month. And while $200 is not an insignificant figure to laugh off, at least not for me, it did make it seem palatable. So notwithstanding the launch of FSD as a subscription and being kind of accessible at $200 a month, I don't think I'll be upgrading, and here's why. Before we get there though, it may be helpful to review Autopilot versus full self-driving. When my family and friends learn that I'm now driving a Tesla, they automatically ask some version of, so the car can really drive itself? That's not how any of this works. Autopilot, as well as full self-driving, are a suite of driver assistant features that, together, help make the driving experience more relaxed and less cumbersome. Basic Autopilot refers to two features. The first is traffic-aware cruise control, or TAC, and the second is auto steer. TAC works similar to cruise control, standard on almost all cars. You set a travel speed and the car will stay driving at that speed. What happens though, when you have cruise control set at 70 miles an hour, and the car ahead of you is traveling at 50 miles per hour. You have to manually adjust the cruise control or intervene, otherwise you'll rear end the car ahead of you. Well, TAC solves that problem by automatically adjusting your car's speed based on the traffic ahead of you. So while you're cruising at 70 miles per hour, if the car ahead of you is traveling at 50, your car will automatically reduce its speed to match the speed of the car ahead of you, and thus eliminating the need for you to manually intervene with cruise control. The second feature, auto steer, assists with keeping your car centered in a clearly marked lane. So if you're driving on a road and set auto steer on, it will keep you in that lane. Auto steer, however, can only be used if TAC is activated. So now that we have a better idea of what Autopilot is, you may be able to see why it's such a useful set of features for driving. Now that being said, what happens if you're using Autopilot and, as in our previous example, you have TAC set to 70 miles per hour and you have a car ahead of you traveling at 30 miles per hour. Sure, TAC will slow your Tesla down to match the speed of the car ahead of you at 30 miles per hour. But who's driving 30 miles per hour on an expressway? That's the shortfall of Autopilot. In that case, you either have to stay driving behind that slow car or you have to manually change lanes. The thing is, when you manually change lanes, auto steer gets disengaged. Can you see the annoyance with this? If you're having to constantly weave through traffic, you have to turn Autopilot on, then off, back on again, then off and on and on. It becomes really annoying. That's what this full self-driving package solves. Full self-driving is a suite of even more driver assistance features that makes driving easier. These features include navigate on Autopilot, auto lane change, Autopark, summon, traffic light control, stop sign control, and coming soon, according to Tesla, auto steer on city streets. I'll share that currently my Model 3 doesn't have full self-driving, just the basic Autopilot. I had a Model Y that did have full self-driving, so my thoughts are a combination of driving my Model 3 with basic Autopilot and my experience with that Model Y with full self-driving. To be frank, quite a few features in the full self-driving suite are novelty, so let's go through them. First, summon. You can use this feature to have the car go back and forth in tight spaces like a garage or a parking lot. Smart Summon will also let you summon the car in certain areas like a parking lot. To me, this is a novelty feature. Heck, I never even had a chance to use it when I had the Model Y because it wasn't something in my day-to-day. This, however, may be a nice feature for someone with a narrow driveway or garage, but for me, it was useless. The next feature is Autopark. Using Autopark, the car will sense a potential parking spot and then parallel park the car for you. Same thing here. When I use the Model Y, the car never, I don't think once, sensed a viable parking spot. Although for me, parking in spots was easy and normal. That might be useful in places where street parking spots are clearly marked and painted and large. But for places like here in New York City, I found Autopark not particularly useful. The next several features are the really powerful part of full self-driving. The first feature is Navigate on Autopilot, which will help guide your car from on-ramp to off-ramp and includes suggested lane changes. Navigate on Autopilot was nice to use, although sometimes pretty clunky, since Navigate on Autopilot will essentially help you weave through traffic. The way the car measures a potential lane change opening needs work. On more than one occasion, Navigate on Autopilot suggested lane changes that felt dangerous, since there were times it recommended a lane change, but there was definitely not a safe space to change lanes. Now, a little more critical in more urban settings like here in New York City is traffic light and stop sign control. This feature is practically unusable right now, at least here in New York City. What this feature does is understand traffic lights and stop signs to act accordingly, such as stopping at a red light or stop sign. To continue moving, you have to give the car the okay by pressing the accelerator pedal. My experience may be a result of living and driving in one of the most densely populated urban cities in the world, but the time it takes for the vehicle to come to a stop and then proceed when I give the okay is just too much. The convenience factor is totally eradicated when I have cars behind me honking because I'm moving too slowly, or another car in a four-way intersection thinking I'm letting it pass because my car isn't moving, and then my car decides to go. Perhaps in areas with less traffic, this works better, but for me right now, not something that adds convenience to my driving experience. Finally, we come to auto lane change. With auto lane change, while you're driving in Autopilot, just engage the turn signal to change lanes. You don't have to disengage Autopilot. This is the one feature I wish was also included with the basic Autopilot because it solves that annoying problem of having to disengage Autopilot to change lanes and then re-engage. So looking at the suite of features that makes up the full self-driving package, there are probably a few factors to consider if it's right for you. One factor is likely where you live and drive. If you're like me and live in an urban setting with lots of pedestrians, cars, motorcycles, people on scooters and skateboards sharing the streets, as I intimated before, many of the FSD features are impractical or not ready for the streets of New York City. If, however, you live and drive in an area that isn't as voluminous with traffic, it might be really great. In some prior videos on this channel, we shared our little road trip from New York City to Connecticut. If I was living in Connecticut, I would definitely get the full self-driving package because most all of the features would be usable in my day-to-day driving. Another factor will likely be the kind of driving you do. If you do a lot of driving on local streets, then the full self-driving package may be disappointing because you have to keep engaging with the car to keep it moving. If, however, you do a fair amount of driving on roadways with moving traffic and very few stop signs and lights, that might be a good spot for FSD. For me, I kind of look at it like this. Auto lane change is the only feature in the full self-driving package that makes sense for me right now, living and driving in New York City. Do I want to spend $200 per month for that one feature? Probably not. So I think for me, I'll probably hold off on getting the FSD subscription right now. If I move in the future, then it'll be something I'll definitely revisit. But for right now, to spend $200 on a feature that's more novelty than anything else because of where I live and drive, I'll pass. How about you? What are your thoughts on full self-driving and the subscription for $200 a month? Are you getting it? Not getting it? Why or why not? I'd love to hear your thoughts, so please do share them in the comments below. Finally, if you're someone thinking about getting a Tesla, super awesome. They are such great cars and really elevate the driving experience. Before you do place your order for your Tesla, be sure to use my referral link so that you and I both get 1,000 free supercharger miles. So I thank you in advance for helping fund my next Tesla road trip. Until next time, take care, be well.